and this week's interview I'm joined by well-known man Gordon Hyslop. Talk me through your early years of being a footballer.
Well, Ryan, my early years, I'm from Kirkcowan originally, very proud of it, home of the famous Taff Rovers, so I used to go and watch them when I was about 6, 7, 8. My dad was captain, played with a lot of well-known players from Stranraer area, John McComb, Willie McComb, Johnny Hanlon for Kirkcowan, went on played with Stranraer, and my biggest thing was watching Taff Rovers beat Alloa 1-0 in the final, the first round of the Scottish Cup proper. They were the first team from the Southern Counties to ever beat a league club, and well-known man Robert McKnight from Glenluce scored with a last-minute penalty. When I worked in the Royal Bank in Stranraer, Robert worked in the Royal Bank in TSB, and obviously is a very well-known local golfer at Glenluce. So that's my first stuff for that. Then I got to play in primary school football at Kirkcowan. We won the small school league, and then I was lucky enough to play with Wittenshire and Dumfries and Galloway at primary 7, and the biggest thing was we played at Stair Park. It was about April 1972. Even the pictures were in black and white then, and Wittenshire beat Annandale 5-1. A good friend of ours, John McComb, scored one of the goals. David Love was our captain from the Bridgeyard farm. He's now down in Manchester. My son, Danny, played with Man United in Sunderland in Scotland 21, so that's an interesting fact. And another, maybe one of your coaches at Lachrine, Billy Holmes, scored a hat-trick. It's the only goals he ever scored in his life, Billy, but we keep lining him up about that. So I was lucky enough to get man in the match, but my first ever game in Stair Park, and when you play at 11-year-old at your home, your team, because Stranraer was my team, it was brilliant. And Jimmy Shanks gave me man of the match. He was in the Stranraer committee at the time, so I was lucky enough to get that. But a lot of good Stranraer supporters were playing that day. Peter Cummins, who comes to all the games, Billy, Ian McComb, Glenn Lucian goals, John McComb, Kenny Binney, Stuart Binney's older brother with the academy. So enjoyable times, and then played with the Dumfries and Galloway schools also. I was a kind of man up front, and another ex-Lachrine man, Spider Smith, was up front too. So, and both our boys played together for the region too. So that was my early days, and then with the schools, Douglas Ute High School, we had a really good team. In the under-16s, we were the only Douglas Ute team ever to win the Dumfries and Galloway Large Schools. But we had an excellent team. Dougie Bark, who your dad will know through the bowling, was our top goal scorer. He basically won his league. Myself, Tommy Menteith, Alec Kuchen, Stephen McDowell in goals, Robert Muir, John Milligan, all excellent footballers. And a lot of us went on to play with a team called Douglas Wanderers. In the Stuart League, we were all only 16, 17, and we won 9 cups out of 9. And we were all very young. I was lucky enough to be captain at 16. And a lot of us then went to play in the Southern Counties. I was looking after Taff Rovers, but when I was playing for the region at the 15s and 18s, Taff Rovers were short one morning, and when I come back from playing for the Dumfries and Galloway against Cumbria, I got dropped off at Kirkcowan, dropped my boots off and went to watch Taff. So Jimmy Hutchinson, the secretary, gave me a pair of boots, and it was 1974 in November. I was 14-year-old playing against the Cuthbert Wanderers, who had just won the Scottish qualifying cup, and we drew 1-1 and had a good game. But the following week, Mr. Shanks had phoned my dad, Jimmy Shanks, who was in charge of the regional team, to say Gordon was not allowed to play. In them days you couldn't play for the schools and play Southern Counties, and especially you had to be 16 to play. So that was that. But it was a very good upbringing. And then at the end of the season, when the school season had finished, Taff played with Wigtown in the semi-final. St Cuthbert's in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup, and we won 2-1. Alistair Kyle an old friend of your dad's, and here's another. Every footballer seems to be bowlers apart from me locally. And then in the final we played Wigton. Bobby Fletcher, Dan Fletcher's dad was playing. Joe Kosh, who helps out at Stranraer, was all playing for Wigton. And Buff Douglas was playing for Wigton then. His son Mark Burlow played for me at Queen's. And Taff won 2-1. Fish Hearn scored 2 goals, but Alistair Kyle, Alan Dunnan, good centre half, Dougie McClintock in goals, Alan Wilson, Andy Hamilton, from the all good players, Johnny Greenhill and the late Bobby McMeekin. So I was lucky enough to play with them boys when I was only 14 in that side in the final. And after that, with the Douglas year, I was lucky enough, Tommy McBride, the main man at Ryan, took myself up to play with the team called Air Royals, where already Spider Smith, Hugh Murdoch, the late John Pollock, good friend of mine, Gary Burns, them boys for Ryan were playing with that Air Royals team. And we were runners up in the league, the Ayrshire League, probably the highest standard of football I've played in. And we get beat in the final of the Ayrshire Cup 3-1, scored, also missed the penalty. And our goalkeeper was Greg Young, who Greg, myself and a lad called Ian Ivory, we played in the midweek for St Mirren with the reserves. David Proven was my manager and Alec Ferguson was the manager then. So Greg we taught to play with Clyde, with Craig Brown and Derek Fry, those lads. And his older brother is Willie Young, the referee, who I see a lot with the supervisors at Anna. So we're a good team. In between them, I was down at Middlesbrough, going back and forward from the trials. And one of my claims to fame is I used to clean Graham Souness's boots when I was down there. And I was at a sportsman's dinner for the Rangers Dumfries lads last year, and Souness was the guest speaker. So one of the lads just said, "Oh, a lad used to clean your boots is there." And I went up, he didn't recognise me, but as soon as I started chatting and my own Galloway Irish accent, he knew who I was. So I was lucky enough to, he gave me a signed painting of myself at Rangers, and that was that. So I come back to school, and St Mirren had offered us a contract to go as an apprentice with that team. Greg Young went to university and he turned out for Clyde. I went for an interview in the Royal Bank of Scotland, 20 hours for 4 jobs, and I got one of the jobs sent to Stranraer. So my mother said, "You can tell that Ferguson and Proven guy, you'll be going to the bank." And I was lucky enough to be playing well with Stranraer. We beat with Taff Rovers, we beat Newton 11-0. Jim Campbell, ex-player, was the manager then, and he recommended me along with Winky Neal, who was playing then, whose father-in-law was Jimmy Edmonds, the then secretary. And I was lucky enough to sign for Stranraer, who of course were my team that I always watched from my granda. He used to bring me when I was about 8, 9. First game was against Cowdenbeath, 1968, where they beat Cowdenbeath 2-1, and Jim Simon scored with a penalty. And a lot of the games that came to Jim Simon always seemed to score with penalties. So watched some great games. The best game I've probably ever seen here was Morton absolute hammers Stranraer in the Scottish Cup. And there was a guy, left winger called Orange and Persson, who went to Rangers, a Swedish guy, absolutely outstanding. And he hit a shot from out there down to the Westwood Avenue goals, and it stuck right in the corner. It was old-fashioned goals, and the ball stuck. He hit it that hard, it stuck in the corner. So in them days there was 2,500 to 3,000 folk going to the games, and the smell of the bovril and the pies at the little canteen just at the side of the old stand there. You know, my granda and then my dad, when he stopped playing, would come with us. We used to sit at the same seats all the time, and that was that. So as I say, that was me. That was my young career when I was still in my teenage years.
You began your senior career at Torf Rover. What was your memories from this time?
Basically, from when I started playing for Tarf seriously, it was a lot of our boys from our school team, and years younger, with some experience. Andy Love was our goalkeeper from the Bridge Air, excellent goalkeeper. Alan Dunnan, centre half. Bobby Marshall, excellent servant to Taff Rovers. Jimmy McGeechan, whose younger brother Lawrence was at Stranraer but was fortunately killed in a car crash. Jimmy was a good player. Andy Hamilton. Willie McKee, my best friend from Kirkcowan, he was a year younger than me. Willie actually followed me from Taff to Stranraer. So we did really well, as I say, at the start of that season, and then just before Christmas time, after about 3-4 good victories, about 11-0, 7-0, and then we played Stranraer reserves here, who at that time were the best team in the league. You know, your Ronnie Calderwoods, Jimmy Bart, Jimmy Hannes, Alan Wilsons, you know, Bobby McKee, Mr. Ford, Tom Ford, hard players. But I remember once I'd been playing again for Taff. Mr. Ford was very hard, Tom Ford, unfair. He hit me in the back, and then I had to kind of limp off. And then in the following Wednesday, we were playing a regional game, and they picked me up in the bus at Kirkcowan. And first thing Tom Ford says, "How are you today, Gordon?" I says, "Still bloody not well, Mr. Ford, after you kicking me," on that side. But in them days, the school guys that took the football teams were all experienced football players. Jimmy Shanks, Tom Ford, Jimmy Robertson, all excellent guys. So as I say, that was me at Taff Rovers, a couple of good runs in the Scottish Cup, 8 guys, and then after a really good October, November, December, I was lucky enough to be asked to sign for Stranraer when Mr. Edmonds and Mr. Haney, the chairman, came into the bank to see my manager, Mr. Robertson, if it was okay for Gordon to sign for Stranraer in the Royal Bank.
You joined Stranraer in 1978. Did you enjoy your time at the club?
It was a dream come true. You know, I was been at Middlesbrough trials, St Mirren, who I thought I was going to sign for. But to play for your team, you used to come and watch as a lad, because obviously in Stranraer in them days, everybody from Stewart, Kirkcowan, Whitehorn, Port William, that was the big thing, was going to watch Stranraer. And coming out your first game was unbelievable. I hadn't met any of the players before. I met Alan McCutcheon from Stranraer, who was the only local player apart from myself. Played for a long number of years, and Alan McCutcheon was excellent for me, introduced me to the guys. John Taylor, the goalkeeper, took me under his wing along with Danny McDonald, and then Jimmy Robertson was something else. Jimmy Robertson's the best player I've played with, absolutely class. So with a 0-0 game against Berwick Rangers, who won the league that year, and Dave Smith, I'm a big Rangers and Leeds fan, as well as Stranraer. And then Dave Smith was the player manager who played for Rangers when they won the Cup Winners' Cup. So he was a big player to play against. So it was all went by quick as a flash on that side. Then we had an excellent game here against Dunfermline in the Scottish Cup. They were the league above. We had a 1-1 draw, and they beat us 1-0 in the replay up at Dunfermline. Then we had a bad month of snow and ice that year. So then the next game was Meadowbank at home, and I was fortunate enough to score a hat-trick and 2 headed goals just before half time, and then a penalty. They flung me the ball. Hugh Hay usually takes the penalties, but Hugh flung me the ball and I scored the penalty. And I always say to my friends in Dumfries and Annan, not many folks I've scored a hat-trick against a World Cup goalkeeper, and then they tell me where to go. And I'm saying, Thompson Allen, he was in the Scotland World Cup in 1974 when he was at Dundee, and he's the only guy that's played for Hearts, Hibs and Meadowbank, all 3 Edinburgh clubs. So that's a wee history question for me. So, and then the following game after that, we beat East Stirling 6-1, and we absolutely destroyed them. But Jimmy Robertson that day was unplayable. I scored 2 goals, one from a shot at the Westwood end, which always seemed to be my favourite side. And then near the end, the free press Gazette described it as the goal of the season. Ian McGuigan passed in Jimmy Robertson, who beat about 3 or 4, hit it. And that was the days before the covered terrace. Crossed it hard and low, and Ackham diving in at the penalty spot and bulleted the header into the corner to make it 6-1. So a good goal of the season that year. So that's probably one of my favourite ever goals. One, it was because it was playing senior, and also it was an excellent move on that side. And then I scored again the following week up at Alloa. We get beat 3-1, and another couple of goals after that. So by coming in, I was kind of in and out a bit, getting used to the pace of the game. Then the following season I had a right good pre-season, because for the hat-trick that year, Giant B Rare were doing a special thing where you get a crate of whiskey if you scored a hat-trick in the 3 professional leagues in Scotland, or if you scored 3 tries in the top 10 league with the rugby, or if in the golf, if you scored a hole-in-one in that summer in the Pro Tartan Tour with the golf. So I've got a good picture where the lads after training, we get presented with a whiskey, and it's one drink that I just can't taste, so my dad got mine, and players got some in the committee. We picked the team in them days, which was very unusual in Scottish football. The committee picked the team. Then, which is with a really good pre-season, and we qualified for the kind of Tribal Cup thing, and we scored. We played Celtic. Celtic beat us 4-2, so I was lucky enough to score against the Celtic. Scored our second goal that day by a lad called Charlie Nicholas. Scored that day, scored a hat-trick, and Charlie Nicholas is the best player I've played against. It was absolutely different class, and it's funny, the Dumbarton manager today, Jim Duffy, he played in that game, along with Neil Woat, another friend of mine, next Stranraer manager, along with Stuart Miller, and John Halpin for Carlisle, who's at Carlisle, he runs the youth set up. I'm very friendly with John Halpin. John was playing that day, Peter Mackey, Willie McStay, Mark Wade. So Celtic are an excellent team on that side, but they beat us 4-2. Then, first home game of the season, they're playing against our old rivals, Queen of the South. And my friends from Dumfries are sick of telling me this story, but they just got relegated, and my old friend George Cloy was playing left back. George is a couple of years older than me, but George is actually born at the Bridgeville, doing it with Swolt. So all these Dumfries folk who think he's a Dumfries legend, George of course is a good Wickhamshire guy. My mum and dad's very friendly with his family on that side. And we were 5-0 up at half time. Queen of the South. Stranraer 5, Queen of the South 0 at half time. We were running them ragged. They couldn't do anything with Jimmy Robertson. I was lucky enough to score the first goal that day, and then after that I got brought down for a penalty, and 5-0 at half time, and everybody's in at half time. Jimmy Robertson, Ian McGuigan, who were 2 very passionate players playing for Stranraer, and we were running riot, and we missed 1 or 2 half chances, me included, and Rowan Alexander scored for Queens that day in the second half, and he wanted to become very friendly with Rowan. He's now manager at Gretna, and it was a disappointment by only winning 5-1. But if you'd have said at the start of the game we're going to beat Queens 5-1, who had just come down from the championship, you know, that would have been that. So that was very pleasing. Graham Robertson's first game for Queens that day, and I say I keep winding George Cloy up about that and my friends. So that was excellent result for that. Then we went on a roll. We were 0-0 in the first leg of the League Cup, World League Cup, which was 2 legs, and we went up to Dunfermline, who were in the championship, and they were a really excellent team. But that night, Jimmy Roberts, myself, Alan McCutcheon at the back was unbelievable. Alan McCutcheon's the most underrated player. Alan would be playing anywhere else, and would be playing a higher standard. But Alan was the best defender I've played with. And we beat Dunfermline 3-2 that night after extra time. I was lucky enough to score the first goal and make the second one for Ian McGuigan. And we absolutely destroyed Dunfermline when we went 2-0 up. And then the next round we got St Johnstone, and we beat 2-1 up there, and then at half time we're winning 2-0. I was lucky enough to score 2 goals that day, and Jimmy Robertson again. We were running right, but we lost 2 late goals, so we beat by that time. So we're on a wee roll. And then in the old days, we used to play midweek games with Stranraer, and there were 6:30 kickoffs. So in the bank, Craig and Elder for a pre-match meal with my friends that work in the Royal Bank, Ali Dixon, John Wilson, Jim Murray, the late Alan McCarroll. The guys used to come and watch me for the bank. Nish Walker, his wife Janet worked in the bank with us, and in Lop. So we're all good Stranraer supporters. So we scored a few midweek games we won, and I scored the winners in those days. So, but as usual with Stranraer, after the new year we always seem to die a death and then come back again. Neil Hood came in as manager the following season. Fortunately I played centre forward as Neil did, so I was let go from that. But played for your home local team in Stranraer well then, even though I'm Kirkcowan, working the Royal Bank in Stranraer. It was a great thing to be, great committee in them days. Alec Linningham, Andrew Hanna, Jimmy Edmonds, you know, great. David Logan got in the committee along with the late Stan King, ex-players. So they always had a wee lift in your ear how to play. So my dad was very friendly with David Logan too. So unfortunately David's just passed away with dementia just like my dad. But good footballers and good guys. So really enjoyed the time. Probably if you've been anywhere else you were that, but we moved on and then we went up to back to Tarth and then up to Mabel on that side. So enjoyed my time in Mabel.
You played for some great teams such as Tor, Mabel and Cretan. What was your memories from this time?
At Mabel, we had a good backing of Wickenshaw players. The best player by country mile was Ronnie Calderwood, who played with Stranraer reserves, and Ronnie Dole, the first team outings, but never just quite clicked for that goal, which I always think football is 90% luck, being at the right place at the right time. I was lucky enough to score a few goals and get away. Ronnie didn't, but Ronnie was an excellent player. So there was Ronnie Calderwood, myself, Billy Greenhorn, the goalkeeper. Used to work in the bank with Billy. Billy played in goals with Stranraer too. And the late John Pollock, left back, young Andrew Croney. So we had a good thing about, and then some good young players that came for United. Ross Scott, Jim Connell, all excellent players. Stevie O'Donnell, good friend of mine from Girvan, who played with here at Royals. Stevie was centre half. So I had a good run in the Ayrshire League that year. Craig Mark were the best team, and a good friend of mine, John McCaig, and then Big Tam Filson. They came from Craig Mark to play with Stranraer the following season because they had a good team. So an excellent standard, Ayrshire football. But good committee, good folk at Mabel, and a well-run club. Then a good friend of mine, Eric Houston, and also Tony McCulloch, asked us to kind of go and play with Cretan because the Mabel season was finished and we went and played. I was asked to play a semi-final, the Oats Cup. We beat Annan 3-2, scored the winner, and then in the final we beat 3 Rovers in penalties after drawing 2-2. Myself and another ex-Stranraer Tap Rovers player, Ian Douglas, scored the other goal. So the following season I said we'd come back. So what I did was I got all our old school team together. Alec Hukin, everybody knows him as Cleek Hukin, centre forward. Tommy Menteith, excellent player. Roy Ferris, myself, John Smith, you know, Kevin Smith. And that year at Cretan we had an excellent season. We finished runners up in the league, and then we finished up winning the Challenge Cot. Then we beat Stranraer in the quarter final. It was an extra reserve from first team. We beat Queen of the South reserves in the quarter, and then the semi-final we beat Wigton. And I scored one of my best ever goals. The 2-2, the Wigton goalkeeper went to the side of his goals, kicked it long. We were playing from the bay end down towards the woods, and I was in the centre circle, and it landed just there, and I just volleyed it straight back into them 2 goals. It never left the ground. It's one of them goals you score once in a career. And then the final, we played Newton Stewart, who were predominantly Stranraer people. The late David Taylor, Worcester Taylor, Dave Smith, the Rangers was in Penningham then, he was playing, Bobby Marshall, Ian Douglas, and we won 1-0. And Martin Peters, ex-World Cup England winner, was up with work, and one of the Cretan committee knew him through insurance, and he presented the cup. So we're winning the Challenge Cup, the main cup, beating the senior teams. That was an excellent thing to do. So then I moved with work to work with the Board Typing office. So that was that. The football in the Wickshire area finished. So that was an excellent Cretan team.
You eventually hung up the boots after a spell at Annan. You're still involved with the club, serving numerous roles over the years.
Annan Athletic, very much like Stranraer, very much a community club. I went down there, kind of finished off playing, running the reserves, and then 18s. I helped Derek Fry with the first team. But Annan Athletic, they've got great people like Sammy Wallace, who's the manager. I actually played Stranraer. Annan's first ever game in the Scottish Cup proper was against Stranraer in December '79. So I was lucky enough. Sammy Wallace was the manager then, and Alan Irvin, the secretary, who everybody knows as Ginger, was playing that day. So Annan scored the first goal. One of the guys that scored it, Bish Anderson, sits beside me along with Willie Smith. They both played that day, and they always reminisce how they went 1-0 up, and the pitch was a quagmire, and it had a big slope in it in them days. You know, it's not like it is now, the nice all weather. It's changed days. So yes, so a great men at Annan playing against them. So we went down with a very good. We started up, Alan Irvin, we started up the under 18s to play in the Cumbria League because there was nothing locally, and we won the league and the League Cup and get beaten in the final of the Cumbria Cup, and then we went to their tournament and got beat 1-0 Derry United in the final of their international tournament. So one of the first local teams to get in the final of the proper tournament. Andy Aitken and Craig Irvin went to Queen of the South after that season. And Matt Shanks always says to me, he says, you them guys well, because Andy's played record number of games with Queens, you know, been serving at Annan. Craig Irvin played with Queens and Annan, so boys good careers. But a lot of most other lads, Matt Little, Paul Laurie, Ali Sloan, you know, all played with the first team, and that's what it's about, is getting your under 18s reserves into the first team. It's not about winning cups, it's nice if you do that, but it's getting like 1 or 2 guys into the first team squad. And if you're doing that, you're doing your job. But that all depends if the manager wants to, is interested in the 18s or reserves. So I've been lucky where Annan and Derek Fry was, and in Queen of the South, John Conley, Ian Scott, Ian Cole, all very interested in the youth. So on that side. So yes, yeah, went to Queens, and then we come back from Queens again. Annan have been on the committee, doing the reserves, vice chairman. First, my dad took not well, so I had to, about a year and a half ago, I had to jack in that. But I'm also back with the COVID thing, doing the COVID test for the opposition committee and players. So we've had Stranraer down twice last at the start of the season. And my good friend Stuart Marshall, top bus driver, Stuart gave him a Stranraer anniversary badge to be the next player, a tie. So, and then following Stranraer, we've also started up our own media. We're getting there, not quite as slick yet as the Stranraer with their own TV cameraman and stuff. And I was interested when Colin Ferguson was asking, how's your pixel doing? To begin with, it follows the guy with the shiny head when he's got floodlights. So, but we're getting there now, and it's getting more slick. And now we're inviting guests on as our guest, my guest co-commentator. So Andy Aitken, Chris Jardine, record captain, Peter Weatherston, legend at Annan and Queens, Stephen Sloan, and David Irons had on last week, and then Henry McClellan, our ex-chairman, who's still heavily involved with SNP at the moment. So we're getting there, and it's been very enjoyable, and it's a very good community club, good youth setup, great facilities, and I always think it's a lot easier when you've just got a large town, everybody's behind it all. Whereas if you're in a larger place where you've got 4 or 5 boys clubs or 4 or 5 teams, it must be a lot harder to get them into the one.
We'll talk about Queens, but that's the bad word in these parts.
Aye, that was very much, I'm the same as I say, probably my favourite all-time game when we're beating Queens 5-0 at half-time, you know, because when you're coming from Wickhamshire, playing against the Dumfries boys, there's always this rivalry, especially when I moved down, they always called me the Clyde-Holer, even though I'm originally Kirkcowan, but because I played with Stranraer, worked in Stranraer. John Connolly, who, when I worked with the Brewers, John worked with UDF and Smirnov. John's an ex all-time St Johnstone player, played with Everton, played with Scotland, Newcastle United. John is a bit of a legend, so I got to know John through work. And we used to send some guys up from Annan Athletic with 18s, and John was doing the reserves with Peter McCloy, another ex Ayrshire legend, big goalkeeper from Girvan, big lighthouse as he used to be called. But so when John got the Queen of the South job, the first thing he said to me, he came to an Annan 18s game, and he said to me, he says, taking over the Queen's job, I want you to come take over the 15s to 16s and take them right through the reserves, because they're not a bad squad, but use your contacts in Ayrshire and Carlisle to get some guys in. So we had a very successful time at Queen's, especially with John Connolly, and the following year John won the league, and then the following year won the Challenge Cup. You know, Queens were playing in front of 4,000 or 5,000 most weeks, unheard of nowadays, and they were the best part-time team in Scotland. So, but our 15s that went to 16s, and then 16s to 18s, we got a carload in for Ayrshire, Paul Burns, Scott Robertson, a bit younger, Stuart Robertson on played with the first team. So Burns and Willie Gibson, of course, that's why I have no hair and grey hair looking after Willie, your star man. And Willie, of course, is now doing the reserves at Queen's, so he knows how hard it is. He's shouting at all the boys now on that side. His son's an excellent player, Lewis, a very good golfer too. So I had an excellent time at Queen's. Went through the 16s undefeated, 18s were running up in the championships twice. We got through the final of the League Cup and won the Challenge Cup 3 years in a trot for under 18s against men. We beat Stranraer, won the final in Stranraer Athletic. And I see my old pal along there, Barney Duffy. Barney was doing the Queen's reserves along with John Pollock. So we won about 6-1 here on that side. And some of the lads from Wigtown I had played, Stuart Clucky and Roddy Cooksley and Mark Worlow. They're saying you can tell the difference. You're still wanting to win at 6-1. I says, because when you're playing in your home patch, you want to do even more. So again, apart from Burns Gibson, Scott Robertson through played with the first team, and then the younger ones, Kevin Holt, Gavin Riley, you know, all did well. But then the biggest thing is the boys that are not just quite, just Queens are part-time then, only 1 or 2 went through at the first team squad. Your Ross Kerrs, John Macbeths, W Robinsons, Graham Bell, Stephen Sloan became captain, and then a 10-year testimony at Annan. So it says that they went from Queen's 18s reserves straight into the Annan first team when they were in the division. Stephen Archibald, famous name, young lad for Carlisle, great striker. So with an excellent squad, and even the younger ones, boys from Stranraer, Jamie McHarry, the 2 Dugan lads, excellent boys. Lewis Dunn with Ali McComb for a year or 2. So then I got involved with the region with Neil Sloan, who his son Lewis is teaching at Stranraer Academy again. But also with good players like Stuart McComb from Stranraer. Stuart travelled from the Mull of Galloway twice a week for training in the game, never missed anything. Stuart along with Jack Steele that year, played with the Scottish schoolboys. And then later on, I got away from the coaching side, going into the paperwork side, because it was all paperwork orientated. So our 1991s were a good squad. 1990s, we started going to the World Cup. So Glenn Mitchell was captain of the 1990s. Aaron Muirhead played, Danny Carmichael had a good career back at Queen's now. Paul Layfield played with Scotland 18s, the 91s. Dean McComb, the star player. A young lad called Grant Hanley on that side, maybe have heard of him. Plays with Scotland. Grant was in that team. Dean McComb was the main man in that team. Scored 2 goals to win the West of Scotland for the Fleece and Galloway. So that year, so he did. Monson Ross was in goals, youngest ever at 15. I always remember Ian McCall saying to me, putting Ross on the bench for 3 games, the first team. He says, he's only 15, he's too young. He says, Gordon, I'm the manager, you're just head of youth. Of course, Ian McCall's a local guy, he's actually, his dad's originally Kevin Newton Stewart, where I'm from, and his mum's from Bar Hill. So, say with Dave Ireland, Dave always says, Gordon, I get stick up here at Stranraer. Folk forget my dad from Stranraer, you know, so once folk know the history. So, as I say, Monson was youngest, Ross, he was the youngest ever Queen's goalkeeper at 15, and then went to Motherwell. But we always had good young players and at Queen's, and as I say, the McCalls, John Conleys, they gave them a chance, so they did, to make a good career in the game. Then I finished at Queen's, last to go back down to Annan and to be on the committee this time, and that's why we brought a lot of the boys, ex-Queen's boys, into the Annan centre on that side. But I have some good memories at Queen's, especially with the boys from the North East, Paddy Atkinson, Peter Weatherston. Ian Scott is coaching out now in America, you know, Warren Pearson, great guys, and they brought Queen's up to another level, so they did. And good chairman, Ronnie Bradford, excellent chairman, and then we've got Fairburn, David Ray, who David was a character, and then lucky enough Queen's get through to the Scottish Cup final, but I went with Scott Robertson, another one that came through the youth set-up, and Paul Burns, Ken, both playing in the game. So always say these guys come through and played in the youths, but again, there's Stephen Toshies, Neil McFarlane's, Stephen Dobie, David McDonald. They were all great influence on the young lads, helped them a lot.
What's the best 1-7 players you've played with?
Oh, I was thinking about this last night, Ryan. I picked about 4 different teams, so I'm going to go from the teams that I've played with right through, you know, later on. The best goalkeeper I would have to say I played with, and he's been a great servant in the Southern Counties, because I used to remember watching the Taff Rovers when I was only a wee boy as a keeper mind him. With Eric Houston at Keaton. Eric, if you asked anybody again, Eric played in the early 70s, 80s, 90s, and he's been a great servant. But Eric Houston was the most natural goalkeeper I played with. John Taylor and Greg Young were close buys, but I'd say Eric Houston. Right back, I'm going to go a 4-4-2, as they say. I'm going to be old-fashioned. I'm going to have to put somebody in at right back, and I'm going to put in Ian Douglas, who was the first team playing at Taff Rovers as a boy, and then played for Stranraer Reserve, and then the first team in NXT. Ian Douglas was a very underrated footballer, apart from the folk that played with him against him. So we'd say Ian Douglas went at right back, and my 2 centre halves are John Muir, ex-Motherwell, Stranraer. When I was a young lad, the football had stopped at Christmas time. We used to come and watch the dream team of Derek Fry, Jim McCabe. But John Muir was playing there at centre half, and folk had said he had lost his pace, but John Muir never lost the ball in the air, and his reading of the game was exceptional. And me as an 18-year-old coming out to Stranraer, was very good at helping me, and he worked with me, tell me what to do and all the rest of it, so helped me especially in the second year. Alan McCutcheon would be playing in beside a sweeper, an old-fashioned sweeper in beside John Muir. Alan, local guy, very underrated player, apart from the guys that played with him. And everybody always said if I'll have been staying somewhere else, he was quite happy to play with Stranraer. And then left back, I would say, would be Danny McDonald. Danny McDonald was one of the best players I've played with. Danny could play left back, right back. At left back, attacking, scored a lot of goals, great penalty taker, and excellent player. The one thing I would have to say, the biggest shock I got when I come to Stranraer, at half time, John Taylor, John Muir and Danny McDonald are flinging cigarettes at one another. They're smoking at half time, and I'm coming after being at some other minute going, I don't even see this in the South. But that's what they did. And the three of them are the most influential players. You know, if you'd have said Danny McDonald was up and down all the time. So excellent players. So that was I couldn't get my head around that when I first came to Stranraer. So that's my back four and goalkeeper. Midfield would be Colin Jardine. Colin Jardine played with me at the region at 15s and 18s from Dumfries. Colin Jardine was down at Ipswich training, nearly signed for Ipswich. If you asked anybody, it was a year below me, but Colin Jardine was probably one of the best players I've played with. Played midfield, played with the Scottish schoolboys at 15s, 16s, 18s, and excellent player. And then finished up playing with Keller Rovers in a long career, then 3 Rovers. His son Christopher was Annan's captain, 10 years serving, brilliant player, he was at Rangers and that. So Colin Jardine gets in that. And David Irons and me were just saying last week, when he was helping with the co-commentating, can't understand why he can't get a game who shouldn't have been senior. I said, David, when I come back up, you know, from playing the senior side, I couldn't believe that yourself and Colin Jardine wanted to play for Queens, you know, come back up to the other side. Middle of the park would be a good friend of mine from school right through, who should have pushed us a lot more, but was still the best player. Ease through the games, Tommy Monteith from Newton Stewart for the year, and Freetown and for the region. Tommy could play centre back and midfield, read the game with ease, great time of the ball, very smooth player, excellent player. One game he dominated, we beat Stranraer, Douglas Wonders in the final of the Galloway Punch in 6 sides. Tommy dominated the game, and Jimmy Bart, Jimmy Hanna, Bobby Fletcher were playing for that team. Tommy dominated the game. Another midfield would be Ian McGuigan, and inside Ian McGuigan played with socks down all the time, made the game look easy, great passer of the ball, great engine, and he, to me, always made Jimmy Robertson look good with his passes. So, and his son obviously, Mark, plays for Stranraer, Albion Rovers, still scoring goals with Stennismuir on that side. So I've actually met Ian, who was vice chairman at Albion Rovers about 3 years ago in a pre-season game. So I've got a good picture of Ian myself. On the left wing would be the one and only Jimmy Robertson. So you could tell Jimmy had started at Rangers, tried to tell Joe Wallace what to do, went to Motherwell, and then Joe Wallace went to Motherwell. So Jimmy was out the door and came to Stranraer, where he reinvented himself. Unbelievable player. He was Stranraer, Jimmy Robertson, and then when he went to Queen of the South, it was the same. Different class. But great lad too, full of fun, and brilliant player. Made a lot of my goals for Stranraer. And up front would be Dougie Bark for the schools. Dougie scored an unbelievable amount of goals with the schools and the send, and then we went down to Dougie had a good season at Stranraer, so he had, I think, he still individual scoring record for Stranraer reserves in the Southern Counties game. You know, folks said he lacked a bit of pace, but Dougie was the best striker of the ball, 25-30 yards, won his other school league, so he did. And like yourself, he's a very good bowler on that side. His younger brother Robert, I'd probably say Robert's a better bowler on that side. And my final place, I was going to say old pal Derek Fry, but I've only played Old Crocs games with Derek, so he just to qualify. So I would have to say Ronnie Calderwood. Ronnie was, you know, he was 3 or 4 years older than me, but when I was younger growing up, Ronnie Calderwood was the man. Scored goals, Stranraer reserve in their dream team. And then when they played with Ronnie, Mabel, excellent player, and then he went to Cumnock too. He was an excellent player. So that's my all-time 11. I've probably left one or two out, but I've thought about it quick and hard.
Do you have any funny football stories?
I've got a couple on that side. One about your good friend, Mr. Gibson. Willie, at 15, 16, was away above himself. He was playing different class. He was playing with the first team at 16 some games. So Willie always wanted to be the best. So and I used to say to him, Willie, I've played in places you'll never play in. I will, I'll even be better. He says, you'll have a hard job, he says, because Falkirk and St Johnstone are now Tesco's car parks. So he falls with it full line and sinker, so he does. That's Willie. Once or twice, my co-coach has had him up against the wall, like, you know, he was trying to tell him the game. So Willie realises now we're only trying to help him. The funniest ever football story involves Annan Athletic. We were in a league. Things with Annan, we were in the Lowland League. We used to, Eric Fry and myself, we went over to Cookstown to play 2 games. Annan always went across pre-season because there was a legend called Kyan Crichton. Kyan had the minibuses at Annan. He was the kit man, he was the water man. Kyan Crichton was the man, and you'll always see his minibuses floating about when he was taking Annan schools everywhere. So Kyan was actually over there, and he got one of the drivers to take us from Annan to the port, and then put the bus on, and Kyan would get it the other side. They'd been over for the 12th, so they had a few of the lads. So we're on the bus, minibus, 20-seater, going up Belfast, up towards Cookstown. We're getting near Cookstown, and this white van and another white van are overtaking us and then stopping and overtaking and stopping. The boys never thought anything of it. Now, being from Wickenshire, and my mum and dad, we used to take us Christmas shopping, so we were used to going across to Belfast, so we knew what everything was about. The lads were looking at all the murals and the walls and all that stuff. They didn't really get what it was about. So we're near this long straight, and the 2 vans, one stopped in front, one stopped behind, and pulled us into this kind of wooded area off the road. And the next thing, these 6 guys jumped out with balaclavas on. So everybody's heart's in their mouth, and they're going, and then they come out banging on with truncheons, banging on the door. And then they had the guns, you know, and unbelievable. Everybody's face, what's going on here? And then they shouted out, right guys, out now, we need 4 people out. So they're all shouting, right, no, you go, take him. And one of the lads, Paul McGinley, who used to be in the army, fancied himself as an SAS man, he says, right, I'll jump them if everybody distracts me. So then Kyan winks at me, so I knew something was on here. So they got 4 of the boys out, and they got the gun, they were going to shoot, and then the next thing they pulled off the mask, and here it was 4 of the guys for Annan, along with 4 of the committee guys for Cookstown. You know, it was that. At the time, your heart was in the mouth, but and that was 1996, and everybody still talks about that as being the best hoax ever in football. It was a brilliant thing. So I've got 1 or 2 others, but Ryan, you're too young at the moment on that side.
Thanks, Gordon, for this interview. I really appreciate it. And next time when you're down, we'll see you again.
Ryan, it's been a pleasure. Stranraer's my hometown team, even though I'm Kirkcowan, but and they used to say, for Taff Rovers, you've got to come and play with Stranraer. Johnny Hanlon, Bob Douglas, Jim Campbell, Lawrence McGeechan, and myself, and then Willie McKee. So Taff and Stranraer always had a good relationship. But best of luck in your football with Ryan, because of the top team, Tommy McBride, Billy Holmes, all good guys, Willie Dugan, all know the football stuff. And the next time you're down at Annan again, give me a shout and I'll come down and watch you. I'll give you a wee shout on.
Thanks very much, and everyone, remember to like, subscribe and share. I'll see you in the next interview. Peace.
Good.